that quickly went viral. He's here to talk about it. But first, let's take a look at that video. Here it is.
Do you know how much youth homicide went up by in London last year? Have you told your viewers that? 70%. Have you looked at the mayoral's police and crime report from December the 12th? You look at that, almost every single measure out of 42, only 4 of them in 4 categories did crime go down. In every single other area, double-digit rises in crime across London. So you know what? To borrow a phrase from Donald Trump, London's turning into a hole under Sadiq Khan.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Raheem
I'm sure you will.
And there you have it. There was Raheem, I believe, on Friday on Sky News. We have the man himself live. Raheem, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but what I found funny about this clip, which has probably got like millions of views by now, it went viral, that the host had been saying the word S-hole, which we can't say. You know, CNN gets to say it 200 times a day, but we can't say it. The host had been saying S-hole throughout the whole interview before that. You know, in an effort to demonize Trump. He was trying to bait you into saying it. That's what I got from the interview. You didn't really. Then you applied it to a different context, and suddenly, oh, we have to end the interview. It was so offensive. Is that what you experienced during the interview?
Well, I'll tell you how this works. You know, a Sky News producer will call you up and say, we're looking for some commentary on this or that issue, and can you get to a studio? And usually I say, yes, and trot down the road here to the nearest studio, and I'm supposed to sit there and just give some commentary. And that's how the entire clip started. About 15 seconds in, as I was giving some sort of balanced background context to the whole S-hole gate scenario, Gamal Fanbullah, who's the Sky News anchor there, started goading me live on national television. And I'm not one of those people who'll just sort of sit there and take it, or wind back down and apologize. I thought, all right, if you want to throw down, let's really throw down. So I started to use the word back at him. I started to talk about when Obama talked about cursing in the Oval Office, when Joe Biden cursed after the signature of the Affordable Care Act, and how actually Obama had also said that David Cameron turned Libya into an S-hole as well. And he wasn't having any of that. The Sky News enterprise didn't want that on their TVs, and so they actually cut me off. They'll tell you it was technical difficulties, but I have sincere doubts that that was the case. Brought me back sort of a minute later and changed the subject, but I managed to sneak it in once more, and that was in reference to what Sadiq Khan's London currently looks like. So it's kind of a bad experience all round, but it's not my first bad experience with Sky News. I had a viral interview from a couple of years ago as well, when they harangued me for the first 10 minutes of the interview about failing to wear a poppy, I just got off the train.
I remember it well.
from New York to Washington, D.C. Where was I supposed to get a poppy on the train? So I think, unfortunately, Sky is supposed to be the sort of at least antidote in some sorts to the BBC, but it's not. It's perceived as the Fox News sister organization, but it's really not. It actually pulls far to the left of the BBC on a lot of issues, Paul.
No, I mean, exactly as you said, it's supposed to be, you know, to the right of the BBC. In many cases, it's worse. I mean, you know what you're going to get with the BBC. You'd think you'd get a slightly different flavour with Sky News. It's often worse. But yeah, I mean, he'd been saying the S-hole throughout the interview. Like, oh, this is so shocking. Like, you didn't even say it, do you, Raheem? You stepped up to the plate. He was on the ropes after that. Then you dropped the thing at the end, which is what people love. But Raheem, I got a tweet last night in response to me posting this video. I'll read the tweet to you. It said, if you don't like London, of course, you referred to parts of London at least as S-holes. It said, if you don't like London anymore, Paulie, love, you can always move, but the rest of us love it just the way it is. What do you think it is about London, Raheem, that this leftist, this woman, loves, quote, just the way it is? I'm wondering, is it the acid attacks? Is it the fact we're rivaling Chicago for knife murders so far this year? Is it, you know, the Islamic ghettos, the attempted or successful terrorist attacks? Which one do you think it is?
Well, it's interesting that you bring this up, and I just want your audience to know that you and I actually have never met. We don't sort of cooperate on stories, but it's interesting that you bring this tweet up, because I saw that tweet as well, and I started to look into the background of this person who sent it. I went onto her Facebook page, and sure enough, in the last couple of months, she's posted Facebook messages about how terrible it is that Islamic schools in the United Kingdom can segregate, and she's also posted about the acid attacks in London as well. So she's saying one thing on Twitter, Paul, and she's actually saying a complete other thing on Facebook to her friends in what she thinks is probably probably thinks is a private account. So I can't wait to get back onto this person about that, because she obviously recognizes that there are major problems in London, but simply to attack you, Paul, she grandstands. She does her whole show for Twitter and in your Twitter stream. And if you haven't seen these yet, I'm happy to send them to you, because I think it shows her up as a massive, massive hypocrite.
I'm just surprised she didn't delete the tweet immediately. I mean, mostly when I quote tweet people, they like have mental breakdowns and lock down their Twitter account or just delete their entire account. So I'm impressed with her for not doing that. But the left pushes this narrative, Raheem, when we're talking about violent crime on the rise or terrorism in London, you know, that it's cowardly and paranoid to say, no, we can't carry on as normal, as they say after every terror attack or every, you know, mass stabbing. Yeah, you know, we've seen several incidents now, 2 in Oxford Street recently, just over the past 2 months, where people do immediately fly into mass panic on a whim. In the case of those 2 incidents, they weren't even terrorist attacks. So, you know, is everyone keeping calm and carrying on as normal, or is this actually changing the behavior of people who live in major cities like London?
Look, I'm a London boy, born and raised, as you Northerners refer to me, softy, and I've seen the city change so almost inexorably. I don't see how we're going to get it back in my lifetime. I have the benefit of seeing it from near and from afar, because I often travel to here in the United States, where I am now, and I go back every so often, and I see the city changing. I was raised in West London in a place called Uxbridge. That looks nothing like it used to look. East London looks nothing like it used to look. South London looks nothing like it used to look. The only pockets that look similar in London at the moment are the major tourist areas. You know, Westminster Abbey, your Parliament Square, Soho's pretty much the same. And if you live in one of these bohemian areas, if you live in, I guess, what the French call the bobo areas, then life seems completely normal to you. But actually, if you get out there into real London, into the suburbs, go out there into places like Tower Hamlets, go out into places like Hayes End, the entire demographics are changing. It's dirty, it's filthy, crime rates are soaring. Over the last year, the mayor has 40 ways, the mayor's office has 40 ways they track crime, 40 categories. Over the last year, only in 6 of those categories has there been a dip, and it's only a slight dip in crime, minus 1.2%, minus 2.8%, whatever. In the rest of the categories, the rest of the 40 categories, it's double-digit rises in crime across London. Burglary up, rape up, homicide up, youth homicide up. Paul, gun crime up. I thought there weren't any guns in London.
It's incredible. And the thing that I've noticed and documented from, you know, public statements where celebrities give interviews and say exactly where they live. It's not like I'm secretly stalking these people. It's public information. Raheem, the biggest virtue signalers about immigration, the biggest apologists for Islamism, live in the nicest areas of London possible where all these problems are minimal. So like you said, they always know they'll be able to escape the consequences because they have resources. You know, they don't have to use public transport. They don't have to use the NHS necessarily. They can send their kids to the best schools, the ones that aren't overcrowded. Poor native Londoners don't have that luxury. So they not only have to put up with the consequences of all this, they also have to be lectured endlessly about how racist they are by, you know, completely disconnected celebrities like Gary Lineker and Lily Allen. I mean, it's relentless at this point.
Yeah, and Bob Geldof and all these lovies who actually just, you know, Bob Geldof was literally seen flipping off with 2 fingers the fishermen ahead of the Brexit vote, the fishermen who sailed their boats down, took 2 days off work, lost a load of money, but to protest against that, he literally stuck 2 fingers up at them from his gin palace on the River Thames. Hold that
thought, Raheem. We've got a break coming up. We'll be back in 3 minutes. The book is No-Go Zones. Raheem Kassam, InfoWars. We are back with the editor of Breitbart London and author of the book No-Go Zones, which is excellent. I've read it. I'm going to tell you how you can get it here in a few minutes. Raheem Kassam. Raheem, let's talk about no-go zones, because if you remember, back in early 2015, the media was still claiming that they were a conspiracy theory. We had the mayor of Paris tried to sue Fox News for saying there were no-go zones in Paris. Here we are 3 years later, you know, mail companies refuse to deliver to these areas. The German government's telling women not to go out alone at night. Swedish police are installing microphones in no-go zones to pick up the sound of women's screams. We've got crime stats out of Germany, Sweden, showing that violent crime is skyrocketing. I mean, are you as hopeless as, for example, someone like Douglas Murray, who, in his book lays out a very skeptical future for these European countries, where this demographic trend, which has created some of these no-go zones, is just impossible to overcome? Do you see are you that hopeless, or do you see a way out of this demographically as we go forward?
I suppose it depends on where you're talking about specifically. Germany, I don't see a way forward for them. France, I don't see a way forward for them. But when you look at the Visegrad group, the Hungaries, the Polands, and even when you look at a country like the United Kingdom with our Brexit vote in 2016, there is still the semblance of hope out there that these things can be reversed. But we actually have to start having really, really tough conversations that people don't want to have. And I've tried to have these conversations over the past year, especially regarding the 25,000 or odd people who are on the Islamic radical watch list in the United Kingdom. I've tried to open up a discussion publicly about what it would entail to actually start deporting some of these people if indeed they have come from foreign countries. And as we know, as you said earlier on in the program, now we're looking at these statistics in the United States and finding that 4/5, I think, is the latest number of terror attacks being committed by people from foreign countries. I suspect that we have a lot of that going on in the United Kingdom too. We keep being told, oh no, but this is homegrown and so on and so forth. I don't think that they're being completely honest about those, and they don't release any statistics, and I suspect we know why they don't release any statistics. So in answer to your question, I think there is some hope for some European countries and for the United Kingdom. But actually, the one thing that I've been saying most recently, Paul, and you will recognize this, having sort of one foot on either side of the Atlantic as well, is that the reason that the Americans often succeed in standing athwart history and yelling stop, as it were, is because they are active citizens in their politics. The British public tend to be quite laid back when it comes to politics. They think that these experts and these politicians will come around to their way of thinking for some reason, and they don't. So they don't get involved in their school boards. They don't get involved in their local council meetings. They don't get involved in politics at any level. And what I'm telling people is actually, if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to bother being part of the solution, then you are part of the problem.
Now, you mentioned the different levels of interest there, the UK and the US. I mean, there's still voracious interest from my American audience in this migrant crisis, in these no-go zones, in these Islamic ghettos. Even, 2.5, 3 years later, it just shows you, they see Europe as the example that they don't want to become. You mentioned Germany. Of course, now we got no-go zones in Germany where we didn't have them in certain areas before. I put out this video yesterday, and you put it up as well. German public television showing soap opera characters converting to Islam in front of their kids. We've got professors in Germany, and you had this story up on Breitbart, talking about mass drugging the population with oxytocin to make them more accepting of migrants. We're rolling the clip out of the German soap opera right now. We had another public television show in Germany where it was a 16-year-old girl in a relationship with an adult Syrian migrant. That was all presented very positively. Do you think this is just all like well-intentioned idiocy from the refugees welcome crowd, or do you think it represents something more insidious in Germany in particular?
Well, the foot soldiers of the Open Society Foundation Army and the Angela Merkel Brigade, they are morons. They are turkeys voting for Christmas. I don't expect any level of critical thinking or analysis into the future from these people. But the people at the top know exactly what they're doing here. It's partly, and you've heard this before, so you'll forgive me, but it's partly to do with big corporate interests. They want cheap migrant labor. Some things in Germany just don't change with their attitude to human beings, let's say, and they like exploiting people. And Germany is becoming, again, prolific at doing that in this century as it did in the last century. And part of it is also the fact that if you change the demographics of a nation, if you eradicate things that people can convalesce around, be it a flag, be it an anthem, any of these things, then people become much more pliable. It's much more easy to manipulate people who don't have other things that they gather around. It could be language, for instance, and we're seeing that taking place here in the United States at the moment, where they're trying to make the case, make the argument that actually there is a place in the United States for more than one flag and more than one anthem and more than one language. I would argue that that is a very, very insidious and well thought out plan being carried out right now. The one thing that they didn't countenance, they didn't consider in all of this is the free media, is critical thinkers out there doing things like you, Paul, off your own backs in many instances, spending all of your time, all of your money, all of your effort fighting back against this stuff. And to the army of people out there who are considering, should I do it? I'm kind of scared. I might be targeted. Yeah, you might be targeted, but you'll be dead anyway. You will not be leaving a country to your children that you inherited. So unless you fight, what the heck is the point? What are you doing?
No, we just got a few minutes left here, Raheem. I want to give you a chance to plug the book. Switching gears, though, UKIP. I mean, you were involved in the UKIP leadership election last time around. Looks like Henry Bolton may be on his way out. That remains to be seen. Yeah. Would you consider running again for the UKIP leadership position?
Unfortunately, I've thought long and hard about this, spent a lot of time talking to very significant people in the Brexit movement over the last couple of days. I don't believe that UKIP has a route forward. And I can get into all sorts of boring and bureaucratic, pedantic things that are going on inside UKIP that makes that not possible. And I might spell that out in an article shortly. But at this point in time, I think I can do far more for Brexit and for the people of the United Kingdom by continuing running a news organisation like Breitbart London and doing all the other things that I do as well. So at this point in time, I'm not quite ready to put my hat in. And I don't think that time is going to come, if I'm honest with you, Paul. As much as it kills me to say so, I just don't think it's salvageable. I think we need something new.
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, a lot of people are now saying that UKIP's obviously in disarray. It needs to be rebranded. They need to start from scratch, basically. That's a sentiment popular amongst many people right now. I just want to give you a chance in the final couple of minutes. Tell people where they can find you on Twitter and where they can get the book, which, again, I've read it. It's excellent. Everyone needs to go out and get it. Where can they do so?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, all those places. It's called No-Go Zones, How Sharia is Coming to a Neighborhood Near You. Actually contained on-the-ground research, which I know is weird for the media to be doing nowadays. I went to all these places, saw it firsthand, interviewed key players across all these communities. I tweet about it a lot at Raheem Kassam. I now have a Patreon as well if you want to support my work, and Facebook fan page as well. So I appreciate you giving me the chance to plug all of that. The book is No-Go Zones.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Editor of Breitbart London and author of No-Go Zones, Raheem Kassam. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Paul.